Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, Principal Atmospheric Scientist at Nutrien Ag Solutions, and I'm going to thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. We'll begin today with a look at a pretty powerful tropical cyclone that's sitting here over the island of Vanuatu. And this was a snapshot yesterday, visible satellite imagery here from Himawari 8, a Japanese-owned satellite, capturing a pretty stunning eye wall and open eye here from this powerful tropical cyclone. On infrared satellite temperatures, it looks something like this as it passed over Vanuatu, and it was pretty powerful with wind speeds measured at 140 knots. And where this is in the world, well, it's just off of the east coast of Australia. So if you look at this particular map, the equator runs right in through here, and we can see the rotation in this area here, which is this tropical cyclone named Harold. Now Harold was, like I said, was quite powerful, but something to comment on here. You can see that the winds around Harold are spinning in a clockwise direction. That is the direction that tropical cyclones and all low pressure systems spin south of the equator, and north of the equator they spin the other direction. And the reason why we start off today talking about Harold is because I want to give you the latest in the new long-range outlooks for the upcoming hurricane season. So there's a group at Colorado State University. It's been doing this for a number of years. They're one of the most respected groups in the world at doing seasonal hurricane forecasting. They do a pretty darn good job. And this is their outlook for the upcoming, 2020 hurricane season. Now, what I want you to look at when you see this is I want you to look at the numbers that are in parentheses. So I'm talking about this one like right here, 12.1. That tells us what the average for a hurricane season would be in terms of, for example, number of named storms. What we're looking at this upcoming year is forecast over in the column on the right. And the number that I really want you to focus in on is this one down here at the bottom called accumulated cyclone energy. This is the total net energy of all the motion inside of the the hurricanes that will be potentially forming later on this year. So what's average? 106. What are we projecting? 150. So this means that some of the early season projections for the upcoming hurricane season are right now calling it to be about 150% of average. So we step back and we ask why. To answer that question, we come to this graphic. What we're looking at here is April 6th current, so this is current sea surface temperature anomalies, so differences from normal. And what we notice is that right now in the Gulf of Mexico, we have extremely warm water. You can see that temperatures there are up to 2 and in some locations approaching 3 degrees warmer than average. Now this is in degrees Celsius too. That's part of the equation, the warm water that is already there. The other parts of it extend back here across the open Atlantic into what we call the main development region. Mostly warm temperatures there as well. The next part of the equation has to do with the cooler water that you see here and the cooler water you see there and the warmer water piling up over in this area. We have been seeing throughout much of March into early April that the trade winds, which blow from the east to the west in this area, have been anomalously strong. So they're pushing that water across the open Pacific, and it's piling up here in this region called Niño Region 4. Now, why this is significant is because if the trade winds, I'll circle them again for you right here, are stronger than normal, that could potentially bring some upwelling from the ocean floor and cool this whole area off in terms of ocean temperatures later on this year. Now, if that occurs and those trade winds continue to stay strong, we have the beginnings of a La Nina. Probably not a strong one, but the beginnings of one. Now, what does all this mean for hurricanes? Well, whenever there are La Ninas, the wind shear, I'll label an S over here, the wind shear in that area tends to be less. And the slower the wind shear values, the less of a disruption we could have to any potential tropical cyclone development. And right now, when we look out longer term into that central Pacific region, we do see that most of our global models, although there's quite a bit of spread here, from April through October are bringing the ocean temperatures in that region down. Now, you need to get below this dashed line to be considered a La Nina and to stay above this dashed line to be considered El Nino. So this certainly tells us that we're not building this back up, because if there was El Nino forecast for the upcoming hurricane season, we would have an opposite outlook. We would say that the season could be more suppressed. So this is one piece of it. Here's the other part of it. You can see that right now when we forecast out for the month of September, we maintain the warm bias and ocean temperatures here in the main development area for the Atlantic. And then we also see the cooler water starting to show up in this section of the Pacific, which may possibly say we could get a weak La Nina event going. Now, to put this all together, we had just released last night the brand new long-range outlooks from the European model. So we're looking at here is June, July, and August as forecast by the European model, and precipitation on the left and temperatures over here on the right. Now, at this particular point, the longer range models are actually projecting wetter than average conditions for a broad sector of the United States, and specifically getting over there into the mid-Atlantic and North and South Carolina. Temperatures not forecasting things to be well above average. In fact, right now the models are forecasting the biggest ridging events to be out west and the flow to be coming from the north and west like this across this region throughout early summer. Now, is this model going to nail this down and get it perfectly right? No, it just can't do that. It's just so difficult to predict the weather out this far, and so we just need to take this as one possible scenario. But the model is responding to the physics of the ocean. And what I mean by that is, as you go all the way out to August, September, and October, those warm temperatures that you saw in the Gulf of Mexico and in the Atlantic, look at what it has done to the precipitation anomalies in these two areas. When we start to see those signals in the long-range model outlooks, it tells us that the atmosphere is conducive to the generation of tropical cyclones, and potentially more than normal. So I wanted to give you that discussion because this was some brand new data that was just released, and I think we needed to see it as early as we possibly could. Okay, so this upcoming year, the potential for having an increased number of tropical cyclones, and those that do form potentially having more energy in them, is higher than normal. That's the main takeaway point from this. All right, over the weekend, things were relatively quiet. This is just a snapshot over the last 48 hours of precipitation across the United States. And the main action throughout the next, for quite some time here, is going to be coming out of two regions, specifically California and also from northwest flow. Now, so far, when you go back over the last 30 days, the upper levels of the atmosphere have looked like the pattern you see over there on the left. I drew a black arrow to represent what the polar jet stream is doing, and a dashed arrow to represent what the subtropical jet stream is doing. But by and large, there's been a very large ridge feature that has wanted to sit right in through this area, and that is why we've seen such a warm start to the year. But there is change coming to this pattern, and the cold air that is currently tucked away in the northern prairies of the United States through the Canadian prairies here will be finally unlocked and allowed to move through the United States by the end of this week. So while we have a warm week ahead of us, toward the end of the week and weekend, things do change quite a bit. And this is what we saw. Now, if you remember last week's video, one of the things I addressed was that we saw a major pattern change and a flip-flop in the models. Well, we were wondering if the trend we were watching all week last week, which was pointing to a colder second week of April and then mid-April, was really going to be robust and show up. And the short answer to that long question is yes. It turns out the models have done a much better job as of late, and as of the middle and end of last week, we started to see things pulling together. What was the first thing? Well, the Mad-Julian oscillation came away from null phase, which is right here in the middle, and it came out into relatively high amplitude, and it is forecast to follow that blue arrow. Well, that blue arrow represents the cold phases of the MJO for the eastern half of North America. Supporting this, a big ridge is pushing up into Alaska, a big ridge is pushing up into and east of Greenland. And if we're pushing the warm air there, the cold air gets pinched out and brought down into the eastern half of North America. Supporting this is this deeper trough that is just to the west of the Aleutian Islands, keeping the flow pattern highly amplified. You can actually see the pinwheel effect of this. Here's the main anchor of cold air. One spoke going that direction, another spoke going here, and the third spoke going there. So this is a highly blocked up pattern currently at this point as we press through the second week of April and into mid-April. So what does it give us? It gives us this for April 10th through the 16th. And that is that cold air, both as represented in the GFS and in the European model, will be pushing through a significant part of the eastern 3/4 of North America. If we look out beyond that, April 16th through the 21st, we see much of a similar pattern. Now, for the midsection of the United States, right in through here, the major discussion is over the frost threat. Normally by mid-April, we're getting rid of our frost threat in the central, eastern, and parts of the western corn belt. So therefore, this is going to delay some planting efforts there for corn and soybeans. But for us over in the Carolinas, while it's going to give us a cool down, this isn't a frost threat issue at this particular point. We do need to watch carefully, but I'm not calling for major cold snaps such that we're 30 degrees below average and therefore seeing detrimental impacts on our crops, okay? In the meantime, we've got this going on. This trough that you see sitting right here is going to take several days, most of the week, to leave California. Therefore, this broad ridge that's out ahead of it is going to keep temperatures very warm throughout much of this week. You can see that here by just looking forward over the next 5 days. Where that trough sits, the cooler weather exists in California, but much above average temperatures for us this week. But this is what's going on. By Wednesday, that trough is still sitting and spinning in this area, but there are two others. There's one here and one here. I'll draw lines through their main axes, and they're being brought through the Canadian prairies, and they're going to team up at the end of the week with this trough ejecting through Texas. And the end result is, to start off next week, we're going to have a broad trough sitting over this section of the United States, and that's what brings in that colder weather. But until we get there, watch this. This is every day this week, looking at our difference from normal and high temperatures. We are warm until right there. This is now Thursday's departure from normal. See the cold anomalies on the back side of that front? Well, that gets to us by Friday, and it sets up shop for our weekend. This is Saturday's departure from normal and Sunday. So very warm week, and then we go back toward near average to cooler than average to finish the week. That seems to be the current setup right now. Now, in terms of severe weather threat, today on Monday, we do have a risk of some storms. I'm going to show you their timing. That threat continues into the day on Tuesday and also into the day on Wednesday, although the main severe weather threat will be outside of the state of North Carolina. But we do have some showers and storms to be dealing with early this week, widely scattered in nature, but we do need to keep a close lookout on them. So let's animate for you the high-resolution NAM model, bring this one out 60 hours, which gets us into early Wednesday morning. And if you watched North Carolina, it's just highly hit or miss stuff. So as we work our way, there we go, let's get into Monday midday, Monday afternoon and evening. You can see that the high-resolution AM is bringing in the chance for some scattered showers and thunderstorms. Mainly, these look like to be linear systems. In other words, mesoscale convective systems or squall lines as they do sweep through. And as this comes through late this afternoon, this evening, some folks will get missed entirely. Some folks could see a brief but very heavy downpour with some strong winds. That lasts through the evening hours. Getting into the overnight hours, things calm down a bit. As we work our way into the day on Tuesday, you see the chance for storms increases again as we work into Tuesday afternoon and evening. See it there again, Tuesday afternoon and evening. And then once again, as we get our way into the day on Wednesday. So by Wednesday morning, the showers and storms are kind of sitting here just to the west of the Appalachian Mountains. To see where they go from there, I got to switch models, though, over to the European. So let's pause this right here, Wednesday morning. So this is Wednesday afternoon and evening. So maybe some widely scattered, very widely scattered storms on Wednesday. Now after that, notice as you get into Thursday, you're like, wait, I see some precip coming in, but the chances of getting through North Carolina are relatively slim. Appalachian Mountains, yeah, but the rest of the state, not too much, as this deep low forms over the over the northeast by Thursday afternoon. Now that could be a very windy day for us in North Carolina. As you can see, the isobars around this system are tightly packed together. That's Thursday afternoon and evening. This is when the colder air is finally in place for our weekend, but dominated by high pressure, we're going to get through. If you miss out the thunderstorms early this week, we may not see precipitation in the state of North Carolina for places that missed those storms until, well, let's get all the way out to next Sunday morning into Sunday afternoon and evening. Now, right now, the current operational European model wants to absolutely douse North Carolina with heavy rainfall next Sunday into Monday. So let's go take a look at what those precipitation amounts might look like. So remember, everything that you see right in through here is, well, not everything, but most everything you see there, except for those locations that get some thunderstorms over the next couple of days, that is all based on the eventual trajectory of the cutoff low that came through California finally getting over to the other side of the country a week later, which would be this upcoming weekend, really Sunday and a Monday. But there's a lot of uncertainty in this total rainfall amount. So what I want you to do when you look at this is just think that the start of next week has the potential to be very wet. But ensemble support for this, notice how the numbers back off a little bit. All right, so instead of seeing widespread 3 to 4 inches, we have to take into account the fact that where that cutoff low eventually goes will dramatically impact how much rainfall we do actually get from it. So I want you to keep an eye on that. Again, that's starting next week. If you missed those thunderstorms this week, though, relatively dry week ahead of us. What about week 2? I have the GFS ensemble over here on the left, the European ensemble over here on the right. Both models agree that the eastern half, well, let's just call it the eastern third of the United States, especially along the coast, could see a wet week 2 as the trough kind of does something like that. So teaming up with the subtropical branch of the jet stream, yes, the cooler air is in place, but the two come together right here along the east coast. Therefore, we see on both models, potential for staying wet into week 2 is relatively high at this point. Longer term, brand new, released just last Friday night. This is the European Weeklies. We're looking at the time period of April 18th through May 18th. Overall, I do expect this section of the United States to maintain a warm bias. I know you're seeing some cooler colors in there and some whites, but I think that that's primarily driven by this as being a 30-day average and the cooler air that's coming in initially in the next 2 weeks biasing it a little bit cool. All right. One thing the models have not let go of for a while is this wetter than average time period for April and May right in through here. They have repeatedly shown this for quite some time. And again, it's feeding on the position of the polar jet, meeting up with the subtropical jet stream, just keeping the pattern active. So that is our kind of longer term outlook for the month of April into mid-May. Okay. From there, I just want to give you a quick snapshot of what's going on in South America. In terms of South America's safrinha crop production, so corn and cotton into this area, right now, no major concerns, especially as we look out over the next 10 to 15 days. Where the main problems for corn and soybeans have been is down in southern Brazil, where there's been drought from Paraná to Rio Grande do Sul. Now, over the next 10 to 15 days, drier conditions continue to exist in that area. And if we look out over April 2nd to May 2nd, we see drier conditions in southern Brazil and in Argentina. So there may be the potential for some problems south while the northern growing regions continue to have a good finish to their season. And by the way, by the time we get to the beginning of May, we've run out of our monsoonal precipitation, so things shut down in South America anyway. Okay, just want to give you that broad perspective on things I'm concerned about. Hope you found this video informative and useful. Look forward to talking again next Monday. Have a good one. Thank you.